because of the quarantine. Um, and it's just been great. I mean, I think you have to, in that situation, there's kind of two things happen. You either realize you're not good and right for each other, or you realize that you're so right for each other. And I'm really glad it went that way, because I don't know what we would have done. Kind of realizing, you know.
People are either making babies or filing divorce papers right now. There's like really no in between.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, getting a puppy.
And like I'm hearing in the album, so I want to dive in because, correct me if I'm wrong, wonder is so attached to your reality, at least to a certain degree, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I feel like even when you're talking about your family and you're talking about Camila and everybody being together, that has to be a huge part of what Wonderland is to you.
Yeah, I mean, massively. I think, Camila we started really dating right at the very beginning of the ideas of Wonder. And to kind of go way back, I remember listening to Are You Gonna Be My Girl by Jet, which is interesting because the album doesn't sound like that, but the original idea was to have the album sound like that. I had a song that was like bum 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 ba dum dum da 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 dum dum dum, and it was like I had the whole Jet feel going. But what I later realized is that I wasn't aiming for that sonically. I was aiming for that essence of freedom and like excitement and like fearlessness. And um, I remember I was in Toronto. This is way before COVID or anything. It was we were walking to a coffee shop, and I'm kind of explaining to her like I want to take some dance lessons. And for the guy who's like always held a guitar and always been told like, don't dance, don't get dancers, don't do it, it's a bad idea. I was like, I think I want to take some dance lessons. And she was like, so immediately she saw it, like she just got on the frequency with me immediately. And she promised, and I made her promise me, don't let me forget this vision, don't let me forget this excitement and this feeling, because I mean, it's very easy. I mean, I also have this thing where I've been doing this since I was 15. And when you're 15 years old and a grown man says to you, no, don't do that, it's horrible, you go, oh, okay, not going to
You
do that,
listen.
it's horrible. Yeah, you listen. But then at 22, you think you have the strength to kind of make your own decisions, but you still have this conditioning of like, maybe it is horrible. And anytime that kind of conflict came in internally, which was like, am I pushing myself a little? Is this weird? Is this uncomfortable? She would be like, no, the vision, stick to the vision. You got this, you got this. And I've never had that before in that sense, you know?
That's really like about pushing you to ultimately be the best version of you in pretty much all aspects, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you're somebody who likes to be the best at everything. So, do you take
Yeah.
on dancing, and are you okay with being mediocre at first, or does that
No,
frustrate the shit out of you?
it frustrates that out of me, but more, even more than that. I mean, like over the last, I don't know. I guess I've been like meditating for probably off and on really for like 4 years, but I really started meditating about a year and a half ago. And that's when I started reading a lot of these beautiful books about the internal world and your ego and all of that fun stuff. And that makes me want to be like, okay, like I can go put myself in a situation where I go and I'm like in a dance class with really just a friend of mine, Maddie, who directed my music video. And I'm like really cool with this guy. And the hardest part for me wasn't sucking at dancing. The hardest part for me was having such an ego about looking funny. It was like I was like, let go. And it's funny because I remember in the class we would just burst out in laughter because he would look at me and he'd look at me and I was just like stiff because I was like, I was more upset about the fact that I couldn't let go than that I looked silly. You know what I mean? It took a long time to just let go and be like, look, like this is how my body moves, like this is what I look like, I'm a tall lanky guy, like I like look funny from angles, like this is me. And like that was a huge step for me in a major way, because that was when I was like, oh yeah, this art thing doesn't have to be so boxed, it doesn't have to be so, I hate to use this word, but it doesn't have to be so mainstream, and it doesn't have to be so what people want or expect from you. Art is completely kind of up to you, you know?
How do you how do you get to that realization? Because like that's not something that existed, when we first met, when life of the party was hitting. Is that something that even existed in your brain when you were creating your previous album, which by the way is one of my favorite albums of all time so
Thank
far?
thank
Really,
you.
it's great body work.
Thank you. I mean, no, absolutely wasn't. Actually, to be honest, the opposite was in my head. The opposite was like, how do I well, always from day one has been, how do I make music that I love? How do I make music that's true to me? But it definitely had a big touch of like, how do I make music that's successful and that, cuts through and works? And it was the worst thing for me as a creative person to live by, because I was constantly judging something before I even had a chance to grow legs. It was like always trying to make something great before it could even be good. And it was something that took a long time for me to learn how to change. And I learned a lot of that from dancing, because I realized like I had to be really and look like weird to be okay, and look okay to be good, to look good, to be natural, to be like, oh, that actually looks kind of nice, like it takes real time.
Shawn, how did the dancing affect the album and the music you made?
I think it was like there was this I had real deep craving to make anything that I would just be like just like I mean, I think most 20-year-olds are kind of going through that. Like in your 20s, you experience something along those lines, but it was like anything that I could feel freedom. And that's for some reason, and the album's not called Freedom, but like I always think of that word. It really, to me, was the feeling that I was chasing so much at the time.
Which, by the way, like I hear that in the songs because a lot of the records have a build, right? Like they
Yeah.
build to something, they build to this moment, whether it's a guitar or, I mean, it just builds, and
Yeah.
sometimes it builds and then it fizzles. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot they have that ability, and I don't know that like it's almost like each song has its own thing of like you're revealing something, and in turn, like you're freeing a different part of yourself. Um, and maybe I'm
So
crazy,
much.
but
No, you're not. It's, I mean, I think that this album, I mean, I really struggled with how I was going to say this out loud to people at first, because it was something that I was thinking about a lot. But I found at the end of the album process, when I was finished, that I was okay to just put the album in the garbage and no one ever to hear it, because it did something extraordinary for me, and it freed me from a demon that was constantly trying to judge and control my art and control my music and control my heart. And that album was like, it felt like there was like so many opportunities to either be controlled by expectation or to break through and just be art. And every time I would break through, it was the very first time for me. And by the end of the album, I felt not only like I created amazing body work, but I also felt like a new person as an artist. It's like a lot of people know my art, but a lot of people have never known the process for me. And the process for me is like making, you know, like a songwriting process, but it's with a lot of anxiety and fear. And it was with a lot of stress. It was with a lot of heartache. And it was not I don't think for me, like the best way I could have been making art. And I really feel like I learned from this album, regardless if it came out to the world or not, how to be free from expectation. And that is something that I could, I would just be so happy no matter what, no matter if it got one stream or not. It was just, it did something so huge for me.
you hear this newfound like confidence and this new, I mean, dude, your records in my opinion were honest before, and I listened back to them very differently even after watching your documentary. But this is like, it is a new level of honesty. Like even where you're at right now, you're in Florida. My question to you is 3:05. That is both a time that you are awake in the middle of the night, terrified of somebody leaving you, but that's also an area code, correct? There's like a
Hmm.
double meaning there.
Yeah, it's three of that. That's exactly what it is. I mean, Camila used to say we have a super honest relationship, and you know, if she was going through something or I'm going through something, it was never like trying to be too strong or trying to be too tough for it. It was she would always just be like, look, I'm on a roller coaster right now. I'm trying to get off of it. I'm like looking for this way off, but I'm on a roller coaster right now. And I would be on the same thing. And I remember like in those first few months of being with her in Miami and being like, you know, I mean, I've always seen, to get mushy on you guys, but I've always seen her like really done up. Like we're in New York City, we're in LA, we're like working, there's a lot going on, and like more of the time it was like a lot was going on. But now it's been a couple weeks and I'm seeing her like in her like very natural Miami way, and I'm just falling in love so much more than I ever thought I was gonna. And the anxiety comes, extreme anxiety comes with that, especially for someone like me who's like, no, you're open, you got this, like it doesn't matter, I mean, you're gonna be fine no matter what, like things happen for a reason. Yeah, you can believe things happen for a reason, but then when you really love someone and you feel like maybe they would leave you, you don't want to believe that things happen for a reason thing anymore, you know. And that's kind of where that spawned from.
That's how you really know about like if the love is deep. Like when you're like when your love is stronger, when somebody's like and like we're all at our like we all have gross moments. Do you get
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like we're human beings. With every day comes moments where we don't look our best. But
super
when
growth moments.
it's true, but when you love, like when your love grows for somebody after seeing somebody in those gross moments, it's like, oh,
Yeah, that's when it's real. I mean, I mean, COVID has been insanely hard and terrifying for a lot of people. But it's been a blessing for my relationship with her in a way that like I don't know if we would have even given ourselves if it wasn't the case, you know?
Shawn, I can't see you having any bad moments.
Man, let me tell you, I have many, many bad moments.